To snow up there in that New York and Connecticut area, and you're down here in beautiful sunny South Florida.
You know what, Don? I got a lot of people that are hating me right now in Connecticut. So but I had to make that move.
Let's talk about the weather for a minute. I mean, you come back to South Florida, and you're in charge of recruiting in Miami. The University of Miami is committed to the Northeast. Coach Golden has said that they want to make sure that happens. Weather and education, it comes into the conversation, doesn't it, when you're recruiting a young man?
Oh, without a doubt. I know the thing we're trying to do is we're trying to really build a foundation here in the South Florida area. I know we have a lot of different coaches, well, really all our coaching staff, flooding, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County, from a recruiting standpoint. We want to keep that talent home.
Coach, I think it was very important for Coach Golden to make sure you were part of this staff because of your relationships here in Broward County. You did a phenomenal job when you were at UConn of taking players out of South Florida year after year after year, and productive players, and I mean big-time players. It wasn't that you were just taking guys that other people overlooked. You were taking guys that were being recruited by everybody in the nation and bringing them to UConn and making sure they had success.
Exactly. I mean, you gotta do your homework, and you gotta want to target those guys that want to come to your program and want to be successful. And that's pretty much all I did. I had to identify the talent, identify kids with good character, and the football was important to them. They wanted the opportunity to come and play, and it's all about building relationships.
When you talk about football being important to the player, that seems to have come out of every assistant coach's mouth today. Yeah. That you want guys that love the game and the process, the procedure it takes to get to be a great football player, not just that they want to be on TV running down the field on a nationally televised game on Saturday.
Exactly. I mean, you can never go wrong with choosing the guys that want to be in your program and want to be at your university. I mean, when you hit a tough situation, when you hit an adverse situation, those guys know how to fight through it, and they won't be looking to duck out on you.
Coach, you spent time, obviously, at the University of Connecticut. You were there for many years, and you had to recruit against the University of Miami. I mean, you guys shared some of the same targets. What's it like putting on the orange and green right now and being able to sell this tradition, to sell those championships?
Well, think it should be a little bit easier because I never beat the University of Miami on the kid when I was at the University of Connecticut. So, I think it'd be a little bit easier.
And let's talk about your relationships up in the Northeast as well. You're a guy that played at Syracuse for Coach Pasqualoni, and he's a hard-nosed coach now. I mean, about tough football. Syracuse was a well-coached team, well-conditioned team, and what did you take out of that experience?
Well, obviously, it's responsible for my mentality. I had a tough high school coach also. And I had a tough college coach, so it's responsible for my mentality, my coaching style, and I think we're going to bring some of that same stuff here. With Coach Golden and the way he coaches and runs his program.
You've got you signed an athlete. We'll quote him as the athlete today. Kevin Grooms is a player out of South Broward. He was from Hollywood, Florida. He may be an athlete, but he's had 161 carries and 14 touchdowns. So when he was running the football, he sure looked very athletic, but he was a heck of a running back.
Right, exactly. I mean, Kevin is a young man that can do a lot of different things for you. He can be a running back. He can be a punt returning, kick returning, slot receiver. Even play on defense. There was some conversation. Coaches were fighting over him a little bit, But from a running back standpoint, me watching him and evaluating him, I mean, the kid's a playmaker. He's the real deal. Quickness, speed, toughness. He's about 5'10", maybe 170 pounds, but he has the mentality of a middle linebacker.
Well, it's a good idea if he did end up with you in the room of running backs, because you need a freshman running back for this class.
Right.
You've got Lamar Miller, who's going into his redshirt sophomore year. You've got Mike James, who's going to be a junior. Storm Johnson, who did not redshirt last year, so he'll be a sophomore. Eduardo Clements played. He's going to be a sophomore. So if Kevin Grooms ends up as a running back, he will be the freshman running back for this year. And how do you take that group that I just named off, and how do you split playing time? I talked to the receivers coach. We talked about catches. Now we're going to talk to you about carries. Good problem to have, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want a solid starter. You want a guy that you can lean on a little bit. But in the game, injuries occur. There's a lot of different situations. From a short yardage standpoint, a third down standpoint, where you can get enough. You can keep guys happy and get a couple of guys the ball.
And you go when you start preparing for spring football coming up, and you'll evaluate all the tape that you have available on these players. And when you look at this group that you have, one thing that was music to a lot of Hurricane fans' ears is you guys understand the importance of a fullback. It's not always just a tailback. You need somebody to block as well.
Right, exactly. And I think we have two young men in our program that don't have a lot of experience, but just watching the all-season workouts and just talking to them from a one-on-one basis, they're very hungry and they want to do it. So that's the hard part. We're going to develop those guys into pretty good football players.
When we've talked to other coaches on the offensive side of the football, they said that Coach Golden is committed to running the football, and Miami will be a run-based team. Explain to us what that means.
Well, what we want to do is obviously use the run, to set up everything. For the most part, I think it's tough if you face defenses that can't stop the run. So why put it? I wouldn't say we're not going to throw it, but it's kind of demoralizing if you're a physical run team and you can just mash people into the ground.
It makes it interesting for me. I like it that way. When you can be predictable running the football and have success, you're pretty much going to win every football game.
Right, it makes it tough.
Yeah, it makes it tough on those defenses. Let's go back to Kevin Grooms for a minute. And this is a young man that was not heavily approached by Miami early on. How did you find out about him? I mean, obviously he was recruited, had 35 scholarship offers, but when did you say, you know what, I think we got a chance to go get Kevin Grooms. We want him. We want him to be a Hurricane.
Well, we can't be held accountable for, who the previous staff was recruiting. I think when we came in, we wanted to, go after the best, available players or the best players that were, wanted to be Hurricanes, and Kevin was one of those guys. And so it made it pretty easy. Obviously, his stats and his productivity speaks for itself. So I say, why not go recruit him?
And Coach, you talk about productivity. I think that especially in recruiting, everybody seems to get caught up in stars, or chips, blue chips, whatever, 5-star athlete, size, speed, but at some point you have to turn on a tape and see how much does this young man produce.
Exactly.
And that's as important an aspect of evaluating that you can have.
Without a doubt. I mean, you want guys that not, if you got guys that look good on paper and you put on the film and they're not producing, I mean, that doesn't do you any justice. I mean, you want bona fide football players, and you want guys that can produce and make plays for you. And he's one of those guys.
When you're coaching your position specifically, it seems that traditionally running back coaches, the running backs are supposed to be able to run the football, but they better be able to block.
Exactly.
And you had to do it when you played, and that's a part of the game. And people wonder all the time, you have a young player who's very talented, has a great high school career. How come they don't get on the field so quick? Sometimes it's because they haven't picked up the blocking scheme or the blitz scheme.
Exactly. The mental part of the game is just as important as the physical part. The blocking part of it to me is 70% mentality, 30% technique. You gotta want to do it, and you gotta buy into it. And if you want to do it and you buy into it, you'll be pretty successful at it.
We'll go back to you personally about recruiting South Florida. You've got great relationships here. You being a former player here, being born, raised here, played here, and then you put on the orange and green. You're a part of the U now. How does that take you into more homes? You know what I mean? When you were at UConn, kids would have to get on a plane. They got to change their environment. It goes back to the state of Miami. That's the bottom line. The state of Miami. How do we make sure that we get the best kids to stay at Miami who are in South Florida?
Well, the first thing we got to do, we got to make sure we're winning ball games. First and foremost. I take great pride in being from this state. I take great pride in being at the University of Miami and coming back home. And the thing I want to do, I want to carry that mentality, that type of attitude, and I want the kids to see that. And I want the kids that we're recruiting to see that this is a great place to be. So why go anywhere else?
And one thing that has been done quite frequently throughout college football is trying to get kids to enroll early. You go back to recruiting. You're a recruiting coordinator here. You want to identify that group of whether it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 10 kids that you can get in that first semester,
Right.
it really gives the young men an opportunity to learn the whole system. I think it's one of the
Yeah.
greitest things you can do. You know, you give up your prom maybe, but
Yeah.
you end up learning how to go to class and adjust into the weight room.
Well, it helps the young man out, and it also helps your program out as far as, being able to add more numbers, for spring ball and not necessarily waiting until the fall, to get those kids into your program.
Okay, this is Don Bailey with running backs coach Terry Richardson, who is also our recruiting coordinator. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll throw it now to Josh Darrow.
Thank you.